Angela would have to take me with her, and she would cut out of school or be smoking in the schoolyard, and then I would go home. Of course, I was 6 years younger than her, and I would tell my mother, Angela's smoking.
And listen, not everybody's going to agree with my decision. I can give a fuck less. You're in that position, it's you who got to face it, then you do what you need to do.
Little Ciancaglini, he gets to the jail and
steal cars from Maryland and take them to Delaware to a chop shop.
The inside prison in Thailand, as well as what Victor Malarek, the reporter, did to get me out of there.
And I sat down and thought about it for the longest time. Okay, but once I made up my mind, it was about survival. I need to take care of my kids and take care of my family. And when a guy's not being loyal to you, how could you be loyal to him?
Welcome to Chatting with Stacks. Welcome to another episode of Chatting with Stacks. I'm your host, Bill Stacks, and today I got Robert Borrielli.
Well, I couldn't. See, I found out later on. I was probably about maybe 20-something years old, that I didn't have an Italian last name. See, this name that you're calling me by, Robert Borrielli, was the name the government gave me through the Witness Protection Program. My real name was Robert Engel.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not in the program no more, so I could talk about this yet. So my real name, so I had an Italian father, so I couldn't get straightened out. So that kind of got me a little bit like, okay, so now I have to be maybe more like a Jimmy Burke. Jimmy Burke couldn't get straightened out because he was Irish.
Yeah.
So I had to be kind of, I don't know if you know too much about Jimmy Burke, but he's a big name, the Lufthansa and all that kind of stuff. But people had a lot of respect for him, even though he couldn't get straightened out. And that's kind of like how I wanted to do. So I was the guy that was going to build a reputation for myself.
When do you think your first real serious brush with the law came in?
Probably at the age of 17 years old. I started hanging out with, there's a guy by the name of now, we called him Fat Andy, but not to his face. Andy Ruggiano was his name, but everybody addressed him as Fat Andy. He was one of the wise guys from the neighborhood, and I started hanging out with his son, Anthony Ruggiano. And Anthony Ruggiano, every time his father had a spread, a meal, and every Friday night, and all the guys from the neighborhood would come and pay respect to him and sit down, and Anthony would bring me with him because his father would tell him to come. And I was sitting down with these guys, talking about big money guys, dressed really nice, jewelry, nice cars, the whole 9 yards. I was very impressed with it. So that's how I really started. But my crime started because I was a violent guy, even at an early age. There's something that happened where somebody got stabbed in a bar fight, and Fat Andy hid me out, and we went to Florida, stood there until they squashed the beef because the cops were looking for me. That would have been my first one. The guy didn't die or anything, but they squashed it, made sure that he was going to testify against me, and didn't even use my name. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. So that would be the first brush that I had. And then at the age of 20 years old, I was arrested for 2 murders and possession of a weapon after hiding out for about a year and a half.
So was the murders and the possession of weapons, was that on orders from someone else?
No, I was just a guy protecting the neighborhood. So if I was in a bar and you came in and you abused the bar or whatever it was that you were doing, that was disrespect to me because I was there. So the whole key thing for me in that life was you can't disrespect me, because if you disrespect me, then everybody else is going to do it. So I have to set an example. So the murders came, one when I was like 18 years old, and they hid me out for about a year and a half. Another one came that I really didn't even do, but I got arrested for it, and 5 eyewitnesses against me. I went to trial on that one and beat the case because they all lied, obviously. But that was, I would say, my claim to fame with Fat Andy and the Gambino crime family, because I got arrested at 20 years old, kept my mouth shut, laid up, waiting to get a bail, stood quiet, did the right thing by everybody, got out, went to trial a couple of years later, beat the case, where everybody thought, he's a young kid, he's not going to be stand-up kind of kid. But I guess I passed all those kind of tests, if you want to say it that way. Yeah. So that's kind of where I started. And from there on, I just escalated.
Can you explain your first murder that you committed?
Well, I can't explain it because the first murder that I was eventually what I got arrested for later on was somebody got stabbed about 20 something times. It was a bar fight, and it was just not me involved with it, a whole bunch of guys. And the guy ended up dying. He started the fight with us.
Yeah.
And so I can't really go too much into
Yeah.
And I really don't like to go into that then, I look back at some of that stuff and see the damage I caused to a lot of families. And I'm not really, really proud of any of that. Believe me, not proud of any of that. And repented numerous times over that. So I'm glad that's not who I am anymore, though.
Is there any other situations that you were involved in that you can explain? Maybe a funny situation or a funny story you could tell me about? Maybe something that happened back in the day.
And once again, I go into the God thing with my stories. That's just me. That's who I am. And at that point in time, I wasn't saved or anything, but I look back at it today and I can see God's hand on my life. There was times when I did some stuff, probably stupid stuff, and probably should have got killed for doing it, and just didn't. Matter of fact, people were waiting for me at my house, and I didn't go home that night. And then somebody gets a message to me, "Don't go home. Wait until they can straighten it out." And this guy Nicky and Lenny and them had to straighten some stuff out for me because I was probably going to get clipped myself. So there's not too much funny in that there. I mean, I can't think of anything really funny. I mean, there probably is a couple incidents that were funny, but I just can't think of them off the top of my head.
What's the reason that people wanted to clip you? Where did you put your hands on a made man or anything?
One of them was they had a diner called the Blue Fountain Diner, or the Blue Fountain Diner, and it was run by somebody I didn't really know at the time. And you go in there, and every time we went into a diner, 4 or 5 in the morning, everybody was drunk. There's usually going to be a fight, and I was most of the time the winner of the fight. I think practically all the time I was the winner of the fight because I was a very violent guy, and I would pick up whatever I can grab my hands on and crack you in the head with it before you could throw a punch at me. So I went in one time and they didn't want to let me in, and then I told the guy, "Listen, you can't do that with me. I'm coming in. I'm going to sit down and eat, and if you say anything, I'm going to wreck this diner. As a matter of fact, if you get me real mad, I'll just burn it with all yous in it." And it happened to be a Wise Guy's Diner. So, and I didn't know it at that time.
Yeah.
I just stood out that night, went to another after hour joint after that, didn't go home. And then finally somebody got word to me, "Don't go home." And I didn't go home for a couple of days until they squashed it. And
So was there anyone that would sit you down and explain the rules to you? Was there people to do that?
I use it in when I preach and also when I share my testimony in churches and other events that I do. And I call it about discipleship. I wish that we had more people in the church doing that kind of discipleship that Nicky Carrazzo did with me. Nicky Carrazzo took me under his wing. He hid me out for about a year before I got locked up. I was about 19 years old. Then I got locked up when I was 20. And he schooled me, and he would spend time with me. I would drive his car. Wherever he would go, I would drive him around. So I was really close with him. And he schooled me. He would walk around the block numerous times just schooling me about that lifestyle. I wasn't too big with my dog is chewing up my furniture. I wasn't too big with the politics of that lifestyle. I really wasn't. But he would try to school me and teach me. And like I said, I like to see a lot of pastors be doing that there with some of these kids because that's what we need. We need to be disciples. We need to show people. The old saying, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
He put a lot of time in with me. And I know that I disappoint him later on in life when I got caught up with the drugs and stuff like that. I think my biggest downfall in that lifestyle was trying to create my own crew and walking away from him in a sense and trying to emulate everything that he showed me to do. So anyway.
With all the information that you're getting from him, I mean, it builds you into a better criminal, right?
Oh, without a doubt. You know, the funny thing was is that sometimes I would talk to guys who were maybe a little bit more involved in that lifestyle than I was as a kid, you know, and they would go back to Nicky and say, when I was speaking to Rob, it was like I was talking to you.
Oh, because he told you so much.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I mean, that would be good if the churches can do that, where they see the Jesus in us. It's like when we speak, they can see Jesus, you know. So,
yeah. Oh, so he was really telling you how it was supposed to be. Like,
oh yeah.
Don't talk to the police, all that.
The story would be, and I don't know how funny it would be, is that when I was with him, he brought me to his apartment. He didn't have a house at that time. He had an apartment with his wife and kids, and he had a card, and the card said, "You are now a member of the Mafia." Now it wasn't it, and then he gave me a blue sapphire pinky ring. And I was like 20 years old. It really went to my head, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're like, wear the ring.
I carried the card with me a little, you know, for a while, and then I realized, well, it doesn't make you a member, but anyway. But it was kind of cool that he did that for me.
Was there other big name people that you've met along your way?
Oh, I met a lot of big names from different families. I was paraded around by Nicky and Lenny and as the up and coming star, the Gambino crime family. You know, even though I couldn't get straightened out, but they would parade me around. So I stayed in the Raven Eye Club almost every day. From there, I would go and work the crack game, come back to the Raven Eye Club. And O'Neill Delo Gross and Charlie West, they got close to it. Charlie West was a captain. O'Neill was the underboss at the time. They really liked me. They liked my, you know, I was very charismatic, so to speak. And people just took a liking to me. Joe Butch. I can go for a lot of names of big-time guys that really were impressed by me, and I was impressed by them also.
Can you tell me about the first time you ever met John Gotti?
Well, John Gotti, I know when I was a kid. I didn't meet Johnny himself, but his brother Vinny was about a year or 2 years older than me, and we were part of the FNR gang together. So Gene Gotti, I knew Gene Gotti. Johnny was already a little bit older than me and my sisters. So Gene used to hang out with my sister Betty, who was about 8 years old. I think Gene's got me by about 8 years, if I'm not mistaken. So he was the 6 or 8 years older than I am. If I'm not mistaken. So I knew about Jeannie. Jeannie was the first one that I got impressed with. And I'll never forget it. I was in the social club on Fulton Street. Nobody was there. And Jeannie came in. Now, Jeannie, I remember exactly. He had a Buick Electra, 225, I believe it was, brand new. It was beige, brown and beige. He had on a brown Italian knit, brown sharkskin pants, brown blue suede shoes. He walked in the back. He had a stack of hundreds. He said, "Where is everybody?" I said, "I don't know. I'm just hanging out here." Threw it up in the air. I thought I was going to get some of it. I didn't get any of it. He went and picked it all up and put it back in his pocket. So that was the first impression that I got of Jeannie. So me and Jeannie, when I was younger, hanging out in that club, clicked off pretty good. And he would bring me to his brother's club that was on 101st Avenue, Bergen and Hunting Fishing Club, something like that. I forget the name of it, but on 101st Avenue. So he was the first one I was really impressed with, was Gene Gotti.